The conference hall lights dipped to an eerie crimson as Arif collapsed on the polished marble floor, beneath the fractured hollow displays that once broadcast his triumph. At 40 years old, the fisherman's son looked every inch the fallen titan, his tailored blazer torn at the shoulder, his wristwatch prototype lying in pieces at his feet. Security guards froze as the murmurs rose to a roar. Board Chairman Raza said, "Your smartwatches have failed every durability test and the investors are pulling out." Tech journalist Lila whispered, "He was never supposed to own that company." A thunderclap shook the glass facade as rain beat the skylights, and Arif pressed a shaking hand to his chest, tasting salt and despair for the first time since childhood. His heart pounded like a storm against a hull as the empire he built from sea salt and sweat crumbled around him. The lightning fractured the sky as Arif pressed weight onto trembling limbs and raised bloodied palms against the glare of camera flashes. Around him, the polished corridor trembled with rumors of betrayal and jaded whispers. Journalist Naveed edged closer in a sleek suit, his microphone glinting under the emergency lights as he asked, "How could you let this happen to the world's most coveted smartwatch?" His voice cracked with urgency while aides in crisp blazers formed a tight shield around Arif's broken silhouette. All around him, the empire he built from humble nets and saltwater dreams lay in fragments. He blinked hard and tasted metal on his tongue as panic clawed at his ribcage. In this frozen moment, every bolt of thunder echoed the cavern in his chest where hope once lived, now replaced by the dizzying surge of shame and resolve. The security shutters clanged overhead, and the hall fell silent as Arif tightened his grip on a jagged shard of metal, his mind racing through the storms of his past. He remembered dawn fishing trips with his father on misty waves, the sting of salt on his lips, and the promise he made to build something that would outlast the tide. Corporate lawyers in tailored suits hovered at the perimeter, their voices hushed but lethal. "Legal counsel," Aisha said. "Investors demand a complete tear-down and audit of your ecosystem by dawn," and her tone carried the finality of a judge's gavel. Arif rose unsteadily, his gaze steeled by a flicker of defiance that glowed for an instant beneath the shame. The lightning outside framed his silhouette like a warrior's banner, and the shattered prototypes at his feet pulsed like a war drum of second chances. In the hush that followed, a solo spotlight flickered above, casting Arif's elongated shadow across the hydroponic plants in the corner of the atrium. The sensors detected static in the air as his smartwatch on the floor sparked a final ember of light before dying forever. Operations Manager Farhan barked, "Clear the site immediately," his tone a grim echo of every door slammed shut in Arif's life. A heartbeat later, the guards obliged, dragging cables and drone lights into silence. And then, a distant horn signaled a new storm brewing beyond any weather warnings. Arif pressed the broken watch to his heart and felt the weight of every impossible dream he had fished from the sea. In that pregnant moment, the world waited for his next move as thunder rolled like an omen of both ruin and redemption. A deep exhale rattled the atrium as Arif's knees buckled, and he fell backward onto a tangle of cables, his vision swimming with the taste of salt and battery acid. Rain stenciled patterns onto the glass walls behind him, and the storm outside whispered that nothing would ever be the same. He felt the echo of every net cast at dawn, and every night spent soldering circuits under a single bulb. Journalist Layla murmured, "This is the end of an era," but in Arif's eyes, a spark still dwelled that no single storm could extinguish. He placed a trembling finger to the cracked screen, and a spark flickered one last time before fading to black. And all that remained was the promise of the next wave, rising beyond the horizon. The morning after the collapse, Arif stood at the edge of Karachi's coastline, barefoot, his toes buried in the damp sand. The gray dawn mist curled around his frame like a ghost of failure. Children nearby chased kites, unaware that the man watching the waves was once a tech icon. Arif whispered to the wind, "I should have stayed with the sea." But deep within, another voice replied, "You left to dream bigger." His phone vibrated, one message from his estranged younger brother Kamal, "Come home. Baba is sick." The timing felt cruel, like fate was peeling open old wounds. He turned away from the sea reluctantly, the weight of his father's failing health heavier than the millions he'd just lost. For the first time in years, Arif felt truly small. Not because of market caps or headlines, but because he had no choice but to return to the village he had fought so hard to leave behind. The rickety bus groaned along the cracked coastal road as Arif stared out at the passing fields. Time seemed slower here, each mile dragging him back into memory. The village emerged through the dust like a mirage, unchanged, stubborn. Children kicked a plastic bottle near the water pump. A cow meandered past a rusting satellite dish. As the bus stopped, Arif stepped down and froze. His childhood home, a weathered stone house with blue shutters, stood quietly among the trees. Kamal leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, not smiling. "You came back," he said. Arif replied, "I didn't have a choice." Kamal nodded, the kind of nod that held 100 things unsaid. As they embraced awkwardly, the door creaked open, and the voice of their father, old, cracked, hopeful, called from inside, "Is that my boy?" Arif swallowed the knot in his throat. "It's me, Baba. I'm home." The interior of the house smelled of turmeric, sea salt, and thyme. Baba lay in a wooden cot, thin as driftwood, a wool blanket over his legs. Arif knelt beside him, gently taking his frail hand. "You look tired," Baba said, his eyes twinkling through the exhaustion. "So do you." Arif smiled faintly. "You bring your watch?" Baba asked. Arif hesitated, then nodded. "It broke, Baba. It all broke." The old man chuckled. "Even the sea breaks your nets, but you mend them. You don't throw the boat away." Kamal watched silently from the doorframe, arms folded, a flicker of something between respect and resentment in his eyes. Arif looked around the room he once escaped from, every crack and photo more sacred than glass towers. And for the first time since the fall, he didn't feel like a failure. He felt like a son. Later that evening, Arif sat alone on the stone steps outside, looking at the shattered smartwatch in his palm. He remembered every sleepless night, designing its core, the nights soldering while others slept. Behind him, the village moved gently. Distant laughter, the crackle of cooking fires, a rooster crowing at the wrong time. Kamal joined him in silence. After a beat, he said, "You forgot where you came from. That's why it broke." Arif didn't flinch. "I wanted it to change the world," Kamal replied. "But did it change you?" The silence between them was dense. Arif said, "I need to rebuild it, but differently, not for investors, for people like Baba." Kamal raised an eyebrow. "People with no Wi-Fi and cracked hands?" Arif looked up, a slow nod. "Exactly them." A pause. Then Kamal chuckled. "Then you'll need help." The first bridge between them, small, fragile, was formed. That night, Arif sat cross-legged on the dusty floor of their childhood storage room, old tools and fishing gear piled high around him. He spread out the broken smartwatch components, now joined by mismatched circuit parts. Kamal scavenged from broken radios. The glow of a single hanging bulb cast deep shadows across his face. As he began soldering, hands steady despite everything, the sound of waves drifted in through the cracked window. Arif whispered to the components, "You're going to live again. But simpler. Stronger." Kamal entered with tea, leaned in to watch silently. "You really think this thing belongs here?" Arif didn't look up. "It always did. I just didn't see it before." The night deepened, but in that cramped little room, something had started, quiet, defiant, alive. In the flickering light of a repurposed oil lamp, Arif etched new circuit patterns on the inside of a broken metal band. Each wire was a rebellion. No touchscreens, no voice commands, just what matters, pulse, pressure, weather, he murmured. Kamal watched him silently, occasionally handing over a tool or resistor. The brothers didn't talk much, but their movements cinched like they used to on their father's boat. A creak outside the room broke their focus. A village elder stood in the doorway. You were once the pride of this place, he said. Now they mock you. Arif didn't look up. Let them. This isn't for them, not yet. The elder walked away without a word. Arif paused, staring at his hands, raw again, like the sea had reclaimed him. He smiled faintly. That's more like it. Word spread. Children peered through the windows. Farmers paused their work. Someone whispered, he's building again. Curiosity grew faster than crops in the dry season. Kamal adjusted a solar panel on the roof, while Arif assembled the first rough prototype, thick, rugged, nothing like the sleek model investors once praised. This looks ugly, Kamal joked. Arif grinned. Good. It's meant to survive, not sit in a museum. The new watch buzzed faintly as it powered up. A red dot blinked. Heartbeat detected. Arif stared, unmoving, then laughed. Kamal laughed too. That night, they nailed a hand-painted sign outside the shed. Heartbeat. It wasn't a product now, it was a pulse. Of a place. Of resilience. And this time, it belonged to no one but them. The new design was built for the unforgiving world. Waterproof casing from melted fishing net plastic, strap woven from jute fiber, sensor shielded in tin scavenged from old biscuit tins. Arif tested it by slamming it against a rock. Kamal winced. You're supposed to wear it, not murder it. The device beeped. Arif beamed. Past. A neighboring fisherman named Yaqub approached. Heard you're making watches. Arif nodded. Wanna test one? The man strapped it on. If it survives the sea, maybe I'll believe in your dreams. At sunrise, Yaqub returned, drenched and grinning. It warned me before my blood pressure spiked. Arif stared in disbelief. It worked. For once it worked out there, not in labs, not in launch rooms, but in life. You built this from trash, Yaqub said. Arif replied, I built it from truth. Soon the village women gathered, bringing their own troubles. Rising sugar levels, heart murmurs, irregular pressure. Arif listened like a doctor and built like a mad scientist. We don't need apps, he told them. We need alarms, simple lights, vibrations. One woman showed him the deep cracks in her palms. No screens, she said. They die with dirt. Kamal modified the wrist casing using fish scale texture to grip better in water. Arif created a 3-color LED system. Blue for good, orange for caution, red for danger. When he demonstrated it blinking red on a local elder, the hush was immediate. It could speak without words. Can we afford this? Someone asked. Arif looked them all in the eye. You already have. There was silence. Then someone clapped. News leaked. A journalist from a Karachi tech magazine showed up unannounced. The fallen CEO building smartwatches from garbage. Care to comment? Arif didn't look up. They're not for you. But Kamal waved him in. The journalist stayed, watched, listened. He interviewed Yaqub, a village elder. Even Baba, who weakly tapped his chest and whispered, My sons brought the beat back. Within days, an article titled, Heartbeat of the Forgotten, went viral. Comments flooded in. NGOs. edX. Local universities. DEPSPAC. A global investor messaged, interested in licensing this. Arif stared at the screen, then turned it off. Let's finish building it first, he said. This wasn't an empire. Not yet. But it was alive. And breathing. Back in the city, Chairman Raza read the article twice, jaw tight. He's turning this into a redemption story, he muttered. A younger executive said, Should we respond? Raza's eyes narrowed. He's using our original tech. We own parts of that patent. He paused. Reach out. Offer a settlement. Quietly. But deep down, Raza feared something worse. Not lawsuits, but irrelevance. The board had stopped laughing. Some were asking questions. Was Arif right? In a boardroom full of screens and suits, an old man in power saw the future shifting, and not in his favor. And far away, in a village without Wi-Fi, a cracked window workshop buzzed like a beehive. No ads. No launches. Just light. A government health officer arrived with a clipboard and skeptical eyes. "You're claiming this can detect hypertension without a display?" Arif nodded. "We tested in the fields, not labs." The officer tapped the device. "Where's the data stored?" Kamal answered, "In their memory, and in color." The officer frowned. "That's not medically approved." Arif said, "Neither is dying poor." After hours of demonstration and field trials, the officer sat in silence. Then, quietly, she unclipped her government badge and replaced it with a Dharkan band. "Let's talk about scaling," she said. Arif smiled. "Let's talk about saving." The system was too slow. But hearts beat fast. And this time, the system was listening. With validation came attention. Engo trucks rolled in. Health workers volunteered. Donations flooded. But so did opportunists. A flashy investor arrived in a sports car, drone camera hovering overhead. "Let's take this global," he beamed. "We can brand it. Dharkan X, maybe throw in a touchscreen. Holograms." Arif shook his head. "It already works." The investor chuckled. "You think small. This is your comeback." Arif stepped closer. "This isn't a comeback. It's a correction." Behind him, the village kids ran barefoot, laughing, wearing the raw prototypes. That was the brand. Dirt and heartbeat. Arif turned away from the camera. "You want logos. I want lives." The deal died in the dust. On the rooftop at dusk, Arif watched as villagers taught each other how to wear and interpret the new Dharkan bands. A girl showed her grandmother how red meant danger, orange meant rest. Kamal joined him, holding 2 teacups. "We've never been this broke," he said. Arif smirked. "Or this rich." Kamal pointed to the horizon. "Power grid's extending next month. They'll bring internet." Arif took a sip. "We built this without it." Kamal replied, "Imagine what we'll do with it." The camera panned from the dusty roof to the glowing LED bands in the dark below, tiny beacons of survival. The empire wasn't built in boardrooms this time. It was built on rooftops and wrist bones. Late into the night, a live call came through a borrowed laptop. A doctor from Nairobi. A nurse from Laos. An engineer from Bolivia. All had read the article. All wanted in. "Can we replicate this? Can we train our communities? Can we build with trash too?" Arif didn't have slides or slideshows. He just lifted his wrist and showed the blinking red light. "Start with the heartbeat," he said. Across continents, heads nodded. The language was universal. The pain was shared. And now, so was the solution. In that moment, across oceans and time zones, a global resistance to invisibility was born, one pulse at a time. In the village square, an elderly fisherman stumbled mid-step, clutching his chest. The Dharkan band on his wrist blinked a furious red. A child nearby saw it and screamed. Within seconds, neighbors lifted the man onto a Sharpay. Kamal rushed in, pressing 2 fingers to the old man's neck. "Still beating," he gasped. Arif knelt beside him, pulling out a small field monitor cinched with the device. "Blood pressure spike. Get salt water. Keep him upright." The watch had worked. Again. No fancy apps. No network towers. Just light. Just life. Word spread like wildfire. Within hours, 3 more elders arrived asking for bands. "We trust it more than the clinic," one woman said. Arif said nothing. He only watched the red light fade to orange. Stabilizing. The watch had spoken. And it was finally being heard. The mayor of a nearby coastal town arrived unannounced in a dust-covered jeep. "Ah, you're the watch doctor?" he asked, stepping out with a clipboard and creased forehead. Arif wiped sweat from his brow. "Not a doctor, just a son." The mayor frowned, then extended a rugged wrist. Try it on me, Wang Tol. The test began. Minutes passed. You've got arrhythmia, Arif said gently. The mayor blinked. No one ever told me. Arif handed over a worn user sheet printed in Urdu and local dialect. You don't need to read code, just understand color. That night, the mayor held a town hall beneath hanging lanterns and introduced Project Dharkan to his people. This thing saved me before I knew I needed saving, he said. And somewhere in the crowd, Arif exhaled, quietly, completely. The prototype reached Pakistan's dry interior, where field workers toiled in blistering sun. There, the true test began. Dharkan faced dust, heat, sweat, and silence. And still, it pulsed. A woman harvesting wheat paused as her band blinked orange. Caution, Kamal said, reading her pulse. Drink water. Sit down. A man with calloused hands tested his with shaking fingers. Is it real? He asked. Arif replied, so is your heartbeat. With no marketing, no pitch decks, Dharkan spread, village to village, worn proudly next to bangles and prayer beads. It became a symbol, not of tech, but of dignity. In towns where no signal came, a blinking red light now meant life might hold on just a little longer. That was enough. A small tech summit in Lahore extended an invitation. Would the creators of Dharkan present? Arif declined. Kamal insisted. They need to see where it came from. Reluctantly, they packed their prototype, carried in a repurposed fish crate. On stage, surrounded by neon signage and logoed banners, Arif held up the weathered band. This doesn't run on profit, he said. It runs on pulse. There was silence. Then questions. One engineer asked, what if you scaled it with cloud support? Arif answered, what if you built something for people without clouds? By the time they left, 5 young developers followed them back to the village, drawn not by salary, but by purpose. Dharkan was no longer a rebellion. It was a movement. That night in the village, the power went out. Blackness. Silence. Then, slowly, a flicker. One by one, Dharkan bands began blinking red, orange, blue, small stars in the dark. Children ran through the alleys laughing. Elders watched from doorsteps, their wrists glowing like embers. Arif sat on the rooftop, knees drawn in, Kamal beside him. You think it's enough? Kamal asked. Arif said nothing. Just watched the blinking lights, each one a silent story. A heartbeat. A life acknowledged. A signal in the dark. It's not enough, Arif finally whispered. But it's a beginning. Below them, the village glowed, not from neon, but from pulse. A viral social post from an African midwife read, Dharkan saved a mother's life tonight. We've never had something so simple, so strong. The post spread fast. It reached Brazil. Then Nepal. Then Finland. Makeshift versions popped up. DI kits, hand-painted guides, villagers hacking their own versions. Arif watched in silence as someone in Peru mailed him a jute strap they had improved. We added vibration feedback. The note read. Kamal laughed. They're building better than us. Arif didn't smile. He just stared at the band in his hand, crafted by strangers halfway around the world. We're not a product anymore, he said. We're an idea. And ideas, he knew, didn't need headquarters. They just needed pulse. A top-tier VC firm sent a slick emissary to Arif's village. We love what you're doing. We want to help you scale fast. Global app, wearables line, urban launch. Arif asked, will you keep it free for villages? The man smiled. We'll discuss pricing. Arif replied, we done talking. The emissary left, irritated. Kamal asked, was that smart? Arif looked toward the sea. Maybe not, but it was right. A few villagers gathered nearby, worried about supplies. Arif walked to his shed, pulled out a dusty ledger. We'll barter, like always. No brand deals. No IPO. Just humanity, heartbeats, and dignity. Dharkan was never meant for profit margins. It was meant for those who had none. Baba's condition worsened. Nights blurred. Arif spent hours beside his cot, watching the red blink of the band. Still fighting, he whispered. So am I. One night, Baba opened his eyes and smiled faintly. You kept the promise, he said. Arif asked, which one? Baba replied, to build something that outlives nets. Hours later, the red light stopped blinking. Arif sat in silence. No tears. Just breath. And in his hand, Baba's Dharkan band, now still. The next day, they buried him near the water. Villagers came in silence, each wearing a band. As Arif placed his father's on a stone by the grave, one word repeated in his mind. Pulse. It was gone. But it had led them here. After Baba's burial, Arif returned to the workbench. He didn't speak. He built. Kamal watched, not interrupting. The new prototype was thinner, lighter, punctual, simpler, no ego, just essence. The world didn't break me, Arif finally said. It clarified me. Kamal added a jute strap with a carved pattern of waves. From Baba's boat, he said. Arif held it up to the light. It pulsed once, blue. The meaning, steady going. The next version wasn't for mass markets. It was for those who dream without permission. In every stitch, solder and signal, Arif embedded stories, not features. Not innovation. Just remembrance. And when he tested it that night, it worked. No launch event. Just Kamal nodding once. Then silence. And pulse. Weeks later, a quiet ceremony unfolded in the village square. No banners. No ads. Just hands raised, wrists outstretched, glowing faintly. Arif stood beneath the banyan tree, holding a single band. This isn't mine, he said. It's yours. It always was. One by one, villagers approached and received theirs. No cost, no form, only trust. Kamal recorded nothing. No videos. No hashtags. Just memories. That night, Arif sat alone, the sea whispering nearby. He looked at his own wrist. No band. Just skin. Just heartbeat. That, he realized, was the point. Not to build something you own, but something that remembers you long after you are gone. He closed his eyes and listened. Months passed. Dharkan spread, not with campaigns but conversations. Word of mouth turned into word of heart. Volunteers carried bands across borders. Health workers wore them beside wedding bangles. In one Himalayan village, a monk whispered, "Even the mountains pulse now." Arif rarely left the village anymore. He just listened, each update like a heartbeat returning to him. One evening, a small package arrived from a boy in Nigeria. Inside was a photo of his grandfather smiling, wrist glowing blue. The boy had written in marker, "He lives longer because of you." Arif sat for a long time, staring at that line. He didn't cry. He smiled. Because the boy was wrong, and right. They lived longer. But Arif? He had finally started to live. Kamal had begun carving stories into the jute straps, waves for strength, suns for resilience, stars for those lost. Each design told a story, each wearer wore a memory. People began asking for specific straps. One for my mother's heart, one for my son who didn't make it. It was no longer about watches, it was about remembrance, about roots. You realize, Kamal told Arif, we didn't just build a device, we built a language. Arif nodded, running a finger over the stitching on one. Oh, they'll read us when we're gone. That night, as villagers sat around a fire, they shared stories about when their Dharkan band saved someone. The fire crackled. The stars blinked. So did the bands. The sky and earth pulsing in quiet synchrony. A letter arrived addressed only to the Fisherman's son. Inside was an invitation to the World Humanitarian Summit. Arif folded the paper and placed it aside. Kamal looked up. "You're going, right?" Arif shook his head. "Let them come here." 2 weeks later, they did. Journalists, medics, architects, NGO leaders. No suits. Just sandals and notebooks. They toured the village, saw the lights, touched the soil, interviewed grandmothers. One woman said, "My son died before hospitals arrived. But this is faster than hospitals." That line echoed in every room they entered. No press conference followed. Just respect. Just silence. That night, a new sign was painted on the village wall in 3 languages, "Where the pulse began." On the 1-year anniversary of Baba's passing, Arif sat alone at the shore. No device, no screen, just wind, just waves. He remembered the old nets, the morning fog, the calloused hands that taught him how to build, not with tech but with time. Kamal joined him, holding a fishing rod. He'd say we made him proud. Arif smiled. He'd say we took too long. They both laughed. As they cast the line, Arif looked at the horizon, not searching for signal, but for stillness. For the first time, he didn't feel like he was racing against the world. He felt like he had rejoined it. The sea didn't know of patents or failure, only tides. And tide, after all, always returned. Years later, children in schools across continents studied the story of Dharkan. Some wore replicas, others built their own. When did he rain? In one classroom, a teacher asked, "Why was it called Dharkan?" A little girl raised her hand. "Because it knew when you were alive." Across the ocean, in the village where it all began, Arif's house remained, but empty. No plaque, no monument, just a drawer filled with hand-woven bands and a rusted soldering iron. And in the clinic nearby, an elder smiled at his blinking wrist and said, "It's just a watch." The nurse replied, "No, it's a whisper, a memory, a promise." And that's why, to this day, the locals never say his name inside the building. But they all wear what he made. Quietly, proudly, and faithfully.